Is public speaking important?
People fear public speaking more than anything else in general,
Uh-huh.
even more than death itself.
I did not place in the top three, but then the way I look at it is every time I take a speech to the European level, you touch a place that you have to work for, and then you know what worked this year and what did not work the other year.
What should I concentrate more on, winning or
I
enjoying?
mean, when it comes to winning, people become different
Uh,
animals. I was able to speak about the wine for 2 to 3 minutes. Toastmasters gives you some life skills which are very interesting.
you see how people change around you.
Mhm. To the European level and won it,
Wow.
right?
Uh,
And that what that shows is that somebody who was afraid to go on stage can come, learn, and then take each one to a different level of skill. Toastmasters introduces you to the world of speaking, and then what people do with it and how they build on top of it, whether it's stand-up comedy, storytelling, or impro. It's kind of a stepping stone to do many other interesting things.
and they've never heard about Munich Toastmasters or what is Toastmasters. Still unsure to come and visit. What did you tell them? The idea of this podcast is to introduce people. What is Toastmasters? Because my personal experience, this is something that in this relatively short time that changed my life a lot. And I see others also how they are changing when they come to the club, and sometimes after a few months they see how they are talking differently on stage and off stage.
Mhm.
And this is the main idea, that to make this people more aware. What are we doing in the club?
Okay.
And I mean, I'm really grateful for this. First of all, that I see you how you are in the club, and also like you are also your own YouTube channel and the challenges which we will talk about later.
Mhm.
First of all, if someone watches your YouTube video in your Toastmaster speeches and then comes to you and say, Ranjith, what is this Toastmaster? In simple words, what would you say?
So explaining Toastmasters in simple words, I think it's a place for someone to start off a hobby, and this hobby would be to speak in front of people
Mm,
and convey a message, or just sit and talk about something that you want to get off your chest.
mm,
That's the way I would look at Toastmasters, as a place where you can come and speak and experiment.
mm.
But depending on what ambitions a person has, whether they're a beginner speaker or an intermediate speaker or an advanced speaker, I think you can take different things out from Toastmasters.
Mm. Now I would like to come with you a bit to the beginning, like back to the very first experience in Toastmaster. If you remember, how was it like? What made you join? And from then, tell me a bit, how did this whole shape your public speaking journey?
Okay. I mean, my first experience with Toastmasters was in India.
Mm,
So when I was in India, I had finished college and I was a trainee in a company. And two of my friends told me if they want me to come and attend a program where they had had a taste of Toastmasters. I think it was called something like Speechcraft,
mm,
where you take a short while and you understand what Toastmasters is about. And I think in 3 months or something like that, you make a speech. And I heard both of them speak, and these were people I went to college with. And I could see that, they had become different speakers.
mm,
And that was my first introduction to Toastmasters back in
mm.
India, 2001. Yeah.
2001, okay. When people say, hey, we talk about public speaking, and it's like you say, okay, why public speaking? Public speaking is something that most people are afraid of. Actually, I saw lots of studies. People fear public speaking more than anything else in general, even
Mhm.
more than death itself. Why it is that important to overcome this fear, and how your experience overcoming this fear since then until now, how this changed you?
I think, I mean, it's a different, the first question, Is public speaking important?
Ah,
A lot of public speaking trainers would possibly argue it's the most important skill. I would turn it around and say, you know, the importance of public speaking is something that each person has to find for themselves.
mm,
The reason why I say that is you have different jobs with different needs, and public speaking is just one skill that might help you. There are some jobs which require 80% of public speaking, and some jobs which possibly require just 1% of public speaking. And even if it's 1%, there are ways to spend very little time and get that 1% right.
mm.
So that's something about interest in public speaking and whether you want to go into it.
Your experience, like when you, how
Oh,
did you
yeah. Okay.
felt
My
after?
experience with public speaking, it even started even before Toastmasters because I used to go to a club called Rotary. It's an international club. It's also there in India, and my grandfather used to take me there.
Mm,
And every time I saw my grandfather go on stage, he used to go on stage, make speeches, introduce people, and it was always something interesting because many people were afraid to go on stage. Many people were afraid to introduce others. But my grandfather was always very confident on stage.
mm,
And he's a person who self taught himself English, and he went and finished his college much after he had married and had kids, right? So it was a very interesting thing to see that someone whose command over the language was not very good, but still had a confidence to speak on stage. So I think that was my inspiration when I was small to speak.
mm. But I also would like to know from you,
Mm.
throughout these years, what was the most memorable either speech or experience you had in Toastmasters that you'd like to tell us about it?
Okay. I think for me, mm, every time I take a speech on a journey, it becomes memorable. Like so, for example, every time I compete in the European level,
Mm,
you have to go through 3 to 4 levels. And you have to go through the club, the area, the division, and then you land in the district. So that's actually a journey which takes around 3 to 5 months.
mm,
And for me, each of these journeys, I like the journey more than the moment itself, right? So the first time I went to the European level contest was 2014,
mm,
and after that, I've been on the European final 3 more times. So that's totally 4 times on a speech contest. Of course, there are other contests where I've been on the European level, but the
mm.
speech contest itself, I've been there 4 times in the European level. So each time I take it to that level, it becomes special because the journey itself was special. So the
Mm.
last time I went to the European level was this year in May in Duisburg. So the speech starts becoming a part of you because you've practiced it so many times.
Mm.
The speech and the idea behind the speech becomes a very integral part of you.
Yeah, yeah, interesting.
So to answer your question, what
Yeah,
was your favorite moment? I would say was this year May in Duisburg
man.
when I
Okay.
brought the speech to the European level.
Uh,
I did not place in the top three, but then the way I look at it is every time I take a speech to the European level, you you touch you touch a place that you have to work for, and then you know what worked this year and what did not work the other year.
mm. Yeah, and it's very interesting. Also, I saw one of your videos in your speaking challenges. What you said, I think it was even yesterday, that you said, "What should I concentrate more on, winning or enjoying, or something like this?" In
Uh-huh.
this line, you said, "No, just like the journey, the process, the enjoyment, especially if you want to play games. But sometimes even you take if you take Toastmasters as a hobby or something that you like, also, I mean, even your whole life could be like this."
Yes, I mean, I think you're referring to the speech where I talk about playing with hazelnuts, a game. And then I was playing with my wife, and then she won the game, even though she did not know the rules of the game. And the question was whether you play to play or do you play to win.
Yeah.
And I think speaking is similar to that. Sometimes, you can speak to speak or you speak to win.
Mm.
But if you start enjoying speaking for the sake of speaking and for what message you're able to bring to your audience, I think that itself is can be very joyful.
Yeah. 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 Because there is no point of winning if you don't have this playfulness or enjoyment in the end, right?
People are. I mean, when it comes to winning, people become different
uh,
animals, right?
yeah.
So, um, I mean, especially in the speech contest, you'll notice people look at speeches differently because it becomes like something you need to craft around.
Mm. Mm.
Other day, I was helping a friend who is um, working with a speech which is just for 4 minutes, and the text is already very good. And we are talking about when to introduce which sentence, and when you introduce a sentence at this point, what effect does it have? And when you introduce it at this point, what effect does it have
Mm.
on the listener? So
Mm.
it starts getting a bit nerdy.
Yeah. Of course, the topic what you are talking about is important, but this is what we learn also in Toastmasters. It's about how you present is more important than the content or the structure or the content itself, the presentation, and then why you speak is even a different level, which will be reflected on when you speak and people will feel it.
I mean,
Yeah.
one thing I've noticed is I think Toastmasters lets us concentrate on the how and the way we do it,
Mm.
and possibly with lesser depth of content. Even though if you look at the contests, the most amount of points are given for content. um, One thing people will notice when you start talking in business, the
Mm.
speaking is very different. It's not similar to Toastmasters.
Mm.
Uh, you can use a lot of ideas from Toastmasters, but when you're talking for business, the focus, the depth is very different in
Mm.
terms of being able to project confidence in a subject matter. So
Yeah.
I think Toastmaster skills will help you in one way to know how to speak.
Mm.
And when it comes to business speaking, I think there is a different skills required in terms of understanding, depth,
Mm.
experience, which will then, together with the speaking experience, can become something very interesting.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, you talked about also professional life. How did Toastmaster help you outside of Toastmaster? Means, how did it help you in your professional life and also your personal life?
Okay. That's a good point. I mean, let's start with the personal one. Maybe
Oh,
that's an interesting story.
yeah.
So when the day I met my wife, it was a wine tasting, right? It was a wine tasting evening, and then I had just read the back of the wine bottle for 15 seconds.
Mm.
And then with my Toastmaster training, I was able to speak about the wine for 2 to 3 minutes, right? So what happened is my wife thought, oh my God, this guy really knows about wine. And she was impressed.
Um,
Now she knows that I don't know much about wine. Uh, but the interesting point is, I think Toastmasters gives you some life skills which are very interesting. I mean, whether it's a bottle of wine or whether it's a bottle of, I don't know, let's say it's a bottle of M&Ms,
mm.
chocolate, right? Let's say you read about M&Ms, you look at the pictures, and then you start talking about them and how, when you were a small boy, you loved chocolate and you thought a rainbow of chocolates would be great. And when you opened a bag of M&Ms, there was a rainbow of colors. So
Yeah.
I think the Toastmaster skills do help in being able to talk impromptu,
Mm.
be able to talk prepared speeches, and then again evaluate speeches. Um, I think it's a nice skill to have, not just for work or a hobby, but also in day-to-day life.
Yeah. Now let's talk about others. Since when you've been in Toastmasters for so long, we already talked about it. Like you see how people change around you.
Mhm.
So you might tell us one of the interesting transformation experiences for someone you knew how they were before they came to the club and
Mhm.
how they changed. If you have someone in mind that stands out.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, um, maybe we can talk about Mel,
Ah,
right? So one of the things that Mel once told me was before he started with Toastmasters, he was actually very afraid to go on stage.
mm,
He was afraid to go on stage and be able to say something in a fluent manner and come across as a person who has something interesting to say.
yeah.
But then when he started doing it, we're talking of, I think Mel's must have joined Toastmasters in around 2004 or 2005.
Mm,
He started doing it. He enjoyed it so much that he went into the process so deep, and he took it pretty much on every contest
mm.
in terms of impromptu speaking, evaluation, humorous. I think he's taken every single contest to the European level and won it,
Wow.
right?
Ah,
And that what that shows is that somebody who was afraid to go on stage can come, learn, and then take each one to a different level of skill.
yeah.
And at some point, when you have run out of challenges, you go seek your own challenge. So right now, he's running one of the most successful comedy clubs in Munich.
Mm,
So, which is a different kind of speaking, which
yeah.
is a different kind of entertainment. But I mean, I think the roots were laid in Toastmasters.
Mm, mm, mm. Wow. I didn't know this about Mel. It's
Mhm.
really inspiring. Yeah. That's one of the things I knew that I'm gonna discover when we have like this kind of podcast. We dive deeper, know each other more. It's also something interesting for me.
Yeah, I mean, if you want, I can give you another example.
Yeah.
So let's say Kumar, right?
Mm,
Now, when Kumar started with Toastmasters, he was already a good speaker because he had experience in theater,
mm,
right? So he used to do a lot of theater. So he was a very dramatic speaker.
mm.
Whenever he came on stage, suddenly you'd be like, as if you're watching a Shakespeare play on stage, um, because he's so eloquent and has a very interesting way of bringing drama onto the stage. And at some point, he learned many things from Toastmasters, but at the same time he also wanted to explore speaking in different ways, so he
Mm.
started his own storytellers night
Yeah.
in Munich. And
Yeah.
it's one of the most successful storytelling meetups in Munich.
Well,
So if you
yeah.
think about it, I think Toastmasters introduces you to the world of speaking in 3 to 4 different ways, and then what people do with it and how they build on top of it, whether it's stand-up comedy, storytelling, or impro. I think it's kind of a stepping stone to do many other interesting things.
Mm, mm. Yeah. And I'm thinking now, anyone who's listening, I'm gonna put also the links of the storytelling night that event that Pumer has, and also the stand-up comedy that
Mhm.
Dell has. Great. Yeah. I think also this is how we can also grow together, also enjoy, especially when I go see other members doing things that they enjoy and also help others.
Yeah.
Putting public speaking aside, what other unexpected benefits you've experienced by joining the club that others might be surprised? They say, I did not expect this. I expected to come speak in public, but not to get benefit from something else.
I think what I like about Toastmasters, I mean, if people have the time for it as a hobby, as a serious hobby, it's also a good place to make nice friends. Uh,
Mm,
See, I've been in the club. I mean, I was introduced to Toastmasters in 2001. I joined Toastmasters in 2003,
mm,
and I've been in my club since 2005, right? So it also becomes a social event in my calendar. So twice a month, I'm there in Toastmasters, unless I'm going on vacation or something important comes up. But pretty much, I would say 90% of the time I make it to these evenings.
Mm,
So it becomes a part of my social going out, and a good amount of my friends are also from Toastmasters.
mm, mm,
I mean, for example, my wedding was conducted by a Toastmaster called Martin Brown. Um, Mel was doing one part of the wedding when we took friends around in a bus. He was doing a commentary. Um, so, I think Toastmasters all make very good friends. And
mm.
whenever my wife comes to conferences, she says, these are very positive, nice people to be around.
Yeah.
How about you? What did, I mean, how long have you been with Toastmasters now?
Officially since 2019.
Nice. So that's
Yeah.
already a good 5 years, right? And
Yeah.
not
I
just
took
in
I took a
Munich,
break in Corona times, but I came back and then yeah.
not just
Then
in
when there
Munich,
was the
you've also
change
been in other places, right? Like with Toastmasters,
in Frankfurt.
Frankfurt. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's another thing which Toastmasters brings is that, irrespective of wherever you travel in Europe or worldwide,
Mm.
you can just land up in one Toastmaster meeting. It's almost like walking into a McDonald's shop. Like where the how the burger tastes, what goes on the burger. Likewise, in a Toastmasters meeting, you know what the schedule will be, you know what the roles will be. You
Yeah.
can just plug in and talk to people who are in a different city, different country.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, and I think this is also one of the benefits when you ask me now thinking about it. Yeah, when I was in Frankfurt and I then moved to Munich, it was easier for me to have this social life, to start meeting people. I visited so many different clubs before deciding to join the Munich Toastmasters.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I still have friends from other clubs that I was just like a guest there. And yeah, this is also an advantage. Yeah.
definitely.
If someone is listening to us and they've never heard about Munich Toastmasters or what is Toastmasters, but until now they are excited about it, but still unsure to come and visit, what did you tell them?
I mean, I'm a big believer in experimentation,
Mm,
right? So, what I would say is if you have a hobby free, if you have the time and you want to fill it with a hobby which can help you personally and in your work life, then I think Toastmasters is a nice thing to try. And the nice thing is, for example, in a city like Munich, you have 12 different clubs,
mm,
which means almost every day some club will be meeting.
mm,
I would say go and check out 2 to 3 clubs,
mm,
see if you like them. If you like them, then go to the one that you like another 2 times
mm,
and see if you really like the people around because you want to spend 2 of your evenings in a month with them.
mm.
And if yes, to not just meet nice people, but also improve your public speaking skills.
Yeah. I'm gonna give you the chance, of course, to tell me anything you would like to talk about. If a question that I haven't asked you, you expected me to ask you, you'd like to talk about it.
Mhm.
And at the same time, before also we wrap up things, I'd like to know what's next for you. So I know that we talked about your speaking challenges, and maybe you have any other public speaking projects in the
Yeah, I
coming
mean,
days or so.
I think two things which one thing for me in Toastmasters, there is an educational program called Pathways. I
Mm,
keep going down that path, but then what excites me more is the contests, and I've been doing the contest since 2013 or something like that, and I enjoy it a lot.
mm,
Um, so for me, what's next is to win the world champion of public speaking, right?
mm,
So that's a long journey, whether I do it in the next few years or further down. It's a nice place to have out there and keep working towards it. So that's one thing.
mm,
Outside Toastmasters, in terms of speaking for me, um, I'm a software developer and a IT consultant, right? So I do all my work with software and IT and outsourcing. But recently, this year, I decided to do more of speaking and helping others to speak, coaching others to speak, and becoming a keynote speaker so that I can kind of, you know, bring together my passion for speaking into the work world. So that's a new thing that I'm pursuing this year. So let's see
Mm,
where that goes.
yeah,
And the speaking challenge that you were talking about is one of them, right?
yeah. And this is something that I see frequently when people come to Toastmasters. Usually they don't have one hobby. They don't have only, for example, public speaking. And you mentioned some other skills, and we haven't even talked about, for example, photography that you also do. So yeah, this is kind of an example where when you have so many things that you are interested in and you are mixing them in a way, then you can always find this is the kind of thing, the mentality that people usually do when they come to public speaking, because as you said, they like to experiment and go out of their comfort zone. I really love this. And
Yeah, I'm looking forward to many more from you because, you know, we have 30 plus members in our club. Each one
mm,
of them has a very interesting story to tell.
yeah, yeah.
And I didn't feel the time fly talking to you. So I think you have a nice way of asking questions and having a dialogue. So
Yeah,
good idea.
yeah, thank you, Ranjit. Thank you. Then have a great day, and hopefully talk to you again.
Perfect.
Thank you, Ranjit.